if you're watching this, you know that B2B is changing. Now, people consume content the same way everybody else does. They're not reading industry publications and white papers and blogs. They're not. You can't read a blog on the treadmill. What they are doing is they're consuming short form video, podcasts, YouTube, TikTok, and everything else just like the rest of us. And that is where you need to reach your customers. In this episode of Podcast Principles, we break down the format of the podcast that's going to work for you. And also, after over 200 podcasters, we are going to show you exactly what you need to get started, the do's and the don'ts. So thank you so much for tuning into this, and make sure to hit subscribe or follow on the platform you're listening and watching on. Let's get to the episode with me and my partner, Jack. Can I say that the interview show is dead?
It's tricky.
It's tricky.
It's tough to do.
It's
a lot of the people that we end up collaborating with, they want to have it's not quite a mythical guest, but it's definitely that, to do week in and week out and find somebody that has a very unique perspective and fits the profile and what you're looking for your audience. It's not impossible, but I definitely think that's one of the sneaky obstacles to doing guest driven, because if you don't have a co-host and your bench dries up, you're going to have to, and you're doing an every week thing, then you might have to do the solo episode, which is a little bit of a different experience.
Yep.
To put it lightly.
I was going to say, so we're going to get to the co-host strategy, which I think is the kind of creme de la creme of podcasting these days for the business angle.
I like it.
You have to be a little more collaborative, but the way that we put it, right, is, do you want to have 50 co-hosts in a year, or do you want to have one co-host for 50 episodes? And that's kind of the way to look at it, because not that when you're interviewing somebody, they are your co-host. They're not. If you are a real host, right, you're just doing it they're going to talk 90% of the time. You're going to talk 10 if it's dialed. But there is that element of collaboration when you do interviews. And as we've seen, especially maybe in the first 3, 5, 8 interviews you do, there's a lot of that awkwardness and kind of just figuring out how to hang with another person, drop just enough, just enough of you in it, but also showcase them. So it's like that dance is difficult. And I think co-hosting kind of solves it a little bit, but you got to choose correctly.
No, I'm with you. I mean, the rub really with guesting, like you said, is that you have to showcase the guests, and that's part of the pitch. Probably if you're doing outreach, especially to a guest that you would think would be impactful, or somebody that would really bring a new perspective that you think would be valuable, or maybe somebody that's wrote a book that's quote unquote hard to get.
Yep.
But at that same time, you're going to be, like you said, it's not going to be propaganda, but it's going to be doing a little bit of that lip service for them. And the co-hosting gives a lot more flexibility for you to kind of explore your own personality, but not really have the pressure of you just staring down the camera and having to entertain people.
Yes.
But, the tricky thing in there is finding a good co-host, too, that is going to be able to really, that you have a good rapport with. Some people, maybe they could think of one right off the bat, but, if you don't have one, it could be tricky to find something like that the relationship that would work,
Yeah, I was talking to somebody the other day on a discovery call, and he was like, I'm looking for a co-host. And he's like, what advice do you have? And I'm like it kind of just happens, unfortunately, in a sense, where you just kind of know who that co-host is. And then if you don't know, though, there's a lot of things in this business where people do want step-by-step strategy, tactic. How do I get there? And in the creative arts, it doesn't really work like that. So you kind of have to search, like you're going to search for your first 5 guests of your podcast. You have to, it's kind of like a job interview, for finding a good co-host, because there's so many different factors of, like we said, man, one person for 50 episodes, or do you want to go find the 50 people? It's kind of, I think people realize it's a grind either way, in a sense,
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll end with this, in terms of this topic, you know, if you have someone, so like you and I could be natural co-hosts, right?
100%. This is what we do every day anyway.
This is, and I think there's a lot
That's a good
of
point.
professionals or people that we speak to on LinkedIn that have, you know, sort of like they're entrepreneurs or they're kind of heading their marketing or have a personal brand or something like that. They may have a colleague or a mentor or something like that they already have that rapport with, that they already have these conversations with that happen for free. Those are kind of the relationships that we're advocating, exploring.
Yes.
Would be those sorts of things to see if, you know, because there might be, you never know. I mean, that person that you have tons of those conversations with may be thinking the same thing.
Yep.
But yeah, it's obviously difficult to start if you just don't really have any of that and you're trying to find someone. But yeah, if it's natural and you're like, yeah, I would love to be able to do this with this X, Y, and Z person who's already a good friend of mine in the same industry, all that.
Then great.
It's probably worth exploring more so than just starting it on your own, going through that solo experience, and then, like you said, having to you know, change that up just with guests, which is going to be extra work on your end.
And before we get to what to do next, I will say that, okay, if you arrive naturally on the co-host doesn't appear magically, I don't have, you know, it's just not obvious who my co-host is. Okay, great. Interview is a way to do this.
Yeah, it's still there.
Had an investor who was like, okay, I'm not going to do the podcast right now. I'm going to wait a few months. What can my strategy be? And I said to him, I was like, how many more partners, say, in your investment business, how many more people per year do you want to find to invest with you or with your company, right? It's like, say it's 5 to 10. If you interview 50 people that year, 3 to 12 of them are going to be investing with you if the whole rest of the funnel is right.
Seriously, yeah.
Legit. Like if you're a real person, you have an actual brand, you're posting on social media, people are liking it, people are engaging with it. It could be 20 people, it doesn't matter. Like as long as there's something being built, you have a persona, you have the track record, you have a business set up, it's just going to happen. Like the same way that you could set the podcast up the other way, which a lot of the industry doesn't. I wouldn't say industry. Some people push back on the idea of interview your prospects and then some of them will buy from you. Yeah. If you just do it right, they're gonna buy from you. Like when I was interviewing rappers and singers and songwriters, some of them just naturally would pay me just to help them with the podcast they didn't have yet. Like
it's an experience that you had with them, right?
Yes,
so
100%.
Like, we worked with a guy, Jesse Fuchsia, early
Shout out
on.
To Jess, man.
That was very adamant about getting on calls with people, and that was the way that he forged relationships through LinkedIn.
Yep.
And it was incredibly, I don't know, what would you call it, electric? But he's not a great example only because his motor is insane. But just the idea of having real conversations with people, you can do that a little bit cynically through your podcast to have people on. And, you know, at the same time, as speaking from the host side of it, when you approach someone to be a guest on your podcast and saying, hey, I think you would be great for my audience. You know, maybe here's some clips or, you know, some designs that my designer made or whatever to dazzle them a little bit. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear what you think, what's going on with you. Honestly, most people are going to be very interested in that experience. And that conversation, it doesn't mean that conversation is very hollow. I mean, you're still talking to them, and that's still a relationship that can very well translate into business or something, you know, further down the line. Very cynically speaking. You don't need to jump into that, and that's your objective every single time, right? But that's how it ends up happening. You know, it's the same sort of mechanics.
There's a guy who had me on his podcast, and I actually I think it was about a year ago. I was looking for podcasts to guest on, right? And there's these kind of podcast networks, which is kind of ambiguous as to like what the business model is of the network.
What do they, maybe even what do they do?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's all these podcasts. The logos are like made on Fiverr. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody's ever heard of them. Not saying that's a bad thing. It's just like, it seems thrown together. So, but I'm like, you know what? Whatever. I applied for all of these. I didn't get accepted to most of them. I didn't make enough revenue. My business wasn't big enough. I wasn't a an authority in my
Too
field.
bearded.
I had my beard was too long. Whatever the energy, whatever it might have been.
Yeah, I wouldn't live out here. I'd be like,
I know,
no,
dude. You'd be like,
nope.
I'm out, bro. This guy, he's
I'd
a
have a
rapper.
big red rubber stamp too.
Dude, just Scarlet Letter, right? The podcast Scarlet Letter. So I applied for one of them, and the guy he was like, yeah, we'll do it. So he had me on. It was all about me. There was nothing. It was all about podcasts, your company, your business, but not about like, hey, tell people what you do. Now let's talk about strategies to help the audience. It was just interviewing me as a person.
An interrogation, really.
I would say, yeah, had vibrations of a CIA.
Well, it wasn't like aggressive like an interrogation, but it's not really personable.
It wasn't.
You know what I mean?
It wasn't meant to attract.
Fact-finding mission.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And it wasn't meant to attract a wider audience. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I thought, but okay, whatever. So I'm thinking this as I'm going through the interview. I get to the end of the interview, and he says, "Have you ever thought about writing a book?" And I'm like, "I'm actually writing a book, and this was a year ago, so I stopped writing the book. But I'm like, yeah, but I can write. I write every day. I'd rather write it myself." He's like, "Well, yeah, my service is, I basically interview people, and then I get all the text, and then we write their book for them." And cool business model. So I said to him, "So what's the podcast for?" And he's like, "Well, I do 10 interviews a month. Out of those 10, 3 people booked calls. And out of those 3 each month, accumulated over the course of the year, I make an extra $12 million."
So you reached out on either side on your arms, and you felt a very stiff funnel that had formed around you that you found yourself in.
I was in a funnel. But anyway, he did say he made an extra 6 figures just from doing that, because I looked at the YouTube. Was not optimized.
Yeah, all kidding aside, it's a legit, it's not like
so you can do that, but this guy was nice. He wasn't a dick. He was cool. Like he was.
But what is the content really, right?
But that's what I'm saying. He did that to book calls. That was the way to do it. What I would say is he's halfway there. The fact that you're making an extra 6 figures from the podcast, dump it into the podcast, bro.
That's what I was thinking.
Come on. But if you were working with us, you wouldn't be running his funnel. We would add on the extra 50%. That is the funnel for you to get sales. Then also the content being really good, because that's where we start with people. We want to know is this a business focus? Is it 70% business, 30% passion? What's the split there?
Yeah.
We're going to figure that out, but we are not a company that is a box checking content company where we just we made you a clip. Here it is. Like, don't even do anything with no. We want this clip to be posted so people will watch it and then go to the podcast, and the podcast content is optimized so that can happen.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say is you can do the cynically do it to book calls with people, but also, especially if you're making extra cash, make the content really good.
Yeah, I feel like why waste the time, right? And not just
he was halfway there,
and not just be a little bit more intentional.
But I wasn't mad.
I
wasn't mad as the guest. I obviously this is what we do. So
it's
I was
not. Yeah, it's not.
But he wasn't. I've been on shows where you say that they're going to interview with this guy, and then a random girl pops up on the Zoom and she interviews you. Again, it's all about you, and then she says, "My founder wants to talk to you."
Oh. Just down this hallway, through this door, is your destiny.
Exactly. You walk down, and there
Pass
he is,
the test.
all white room.
Well, it's like Deal or No Deal, where the banker is watching silhouetted while you're getting interviewed, and then he's like, he wants to talk to you. Yes. I think that there's something here.
Yeah, so I've been on those.
What a weird experience, though.
Yeah, that is weird when somebody interviews you who
nothing
nobody
super
introduced
dramatic,
her.
but just a weird setup to be
Yes.
and you're just now after this interview, it's let's commence business.
I don't want to stay on this too long, but I do have to close with this note on this topic that's the business he runs. The business he runs is he sets up podcasts for you to train a VA to interview people, to book the calls, to say, my founder wants to speak with you. That's his business. I won't name him because I don't want to. I could, Jack. I could name him.
Jeff Bezos. No.
Yeah, dude, exactly, dude. Mark is, yeah.
Well, look, everybody's got their thing.
Exactly.
And it's
but
not.
I would say that's, okay, you're 30% of the way there, man. Might as well make it good. It's a podcast.
And maybe he will one day.
Maybe he will. But how about this? Here's the press, right?
Yeah.
Hey, I got this podcast idea, but I'm like, what do I do? How do I start?
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
So
Well, that's my response. I go, oh my goodness.
yes, and then pause.
I go, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. What's going on? Right?
Exactly. What would you say? Record? Would you say record before you have a podcast, so to say? Like start setting up some interviews if you're going to interview, just to try it.
I think that, and you and I have been thinking about this a lot, just because we have a lot of people that we end up speaking with that have been thinking for years and years, I want to start a podcast.
Yep.
Or do something more dynamic than what they're doing just on LinkedIn.
Yep.
You know, because LinkedIn can wear you down if you're just writing posts.
It's brutal.
It's not. I don't know. It's not very, like, it doesn't really have a lot of fun for the user. You know. Even though it's important, but yeah, like with that, like you see a lot of people are very interested in getting started at it, but they want to get started completely. So usually I'd say maybe 80% of people that are just pining to have a podcast want to do the video, the audio. They want to do it's almost like we're going to do a rollout, a campaign, a parade. I want to do this. I want to do that.
A giveaway.
Yeah, and there's a lot of
a community
hand wringing over
an email list,
where to begin,
Yep.
where to start, all these things that need to be part of it. And really, when the grocery list gets so many action items that you never really begin. So,
Yep.
Long story short, where we're going with this is that we've found that we see a lot of people that always, that would be even great fits for podcasts could start small, right? With, and look, this is how you know we're telling the truth. Even before an audio podcast, maybe just a newsletter or a blog if you're not doing that already.
Yeah.
Just to get used to, like, what is it like to expound on, content that relates to your industry, your business, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Or even smaller strokes, you just start like recording, like maybe a podcast like what we're doing right now, where you just have a friend and just do a mock interview, see how it feels, see how it sounds.
I was going to say we're almost, in a way, not to take away from that, but we're essentially doing it.
Yeah.
And this is a version of it where it's formatted but not scripted.
For sure.
Open format, but also hitting on some topics. Anyway, just an example.
No, but yeah, it doesn't need to be and this
over formalized.
Exactly. And this was the second. And you helped me with this. This is the second leg of it.
I help you every day, Jake.
Exactly, dude. Exactly. But this is the second part of it, is that as people feel it's just definitely a very perfectionist streak, they're really worried about how they're going to be perceived, which is, that's a natural, not like a fear, but that's very well founded. You want to make sure that,
man, when those lights and cameras and
even, but you want to make sure that it's something that doesn't hurt your business, right?
Yeah, well, I guess that's
where it comes from, I believe.
Especially the perfectionism model is like, what is somebody going to think of this one little thing, and that's going to throw them off.
Yeah, and to just give an example to put some context for that, when we talk about. When we do our podcast launch accelerator and we're talking to somebody about writing the copy for their description, you'll see a lot about how one line, one turn of the word, one adjective can mean a lot about how they're couching it. It's not that it isn't important to, words do have meaning, but at the same time to really zero in and over focus on it, is kind of where you see a lot of that, where, I don't know if that's something where people just feel like they're creating their own obstacles, or they really do feel genuinely nervous about how they're perceived, which is natural too.
Yes.
But just something we've noticed in general is,
and you can, the beautiful part, which is something that even that you could tell somebody this 100 times. You can change your description as many times as you want,
and nobody will probably notice.
And this is the podcast funnel, right? We have a whole episode on this, right? But let me just explain it real quick. This is how it really works. If you really want to know how somebody finds your podcast on organic social media, this is how it actually works. They see your posts or a comment, they follow, right? Now, once they follow, they're somewhat in the ecosystem. They're going to see some of your stuff some of the time, right? On LinkedIn, it's the first 2 weeks that they follow. That's when they're going to see the most of your content. And then beyond that point, you have to make sure that they engage with it, and then LinkedIn's going to keep showing it to them. They're going to see post after post after post, probably 8 to 12. Then, eventually, you're going to do a call to action for the podcast. They're going to click on that link. If you send them to YouTube, that's a different animal, different episode. But if you send them to the Spotify, the Apple, They're going to look at the artwork, judge that. They're going to read the first 3 things of the description. Like, they're not really going to read much of it, right? Probably they're not going to
Window
click
shopping.
They're not going to click see more and read your whole, like, that's why 3 paragraphs, guys, is
Yeah,
you
well, we don't
it.
bank on it. Yeah,
Exactly.
For sure.
We completely customize it so that the first sentence tells you what you the description is meant to get them to the episode. It's not meant to keep them on the description, right?
Yeah.
So they judge a little bit of that and then they click play. And then that's
that's how I search. I don't know if
but that's just real life, I think. Like,
yeah, with what
isn't that how people find it? Like,
that's what I think.
you only have 7 seconds to judge this podcast. You have
For
all
sure.
you have Rogan, you got Ferris, you got Huberman, you got Call Her Dad, you got all these other ones that people just in their leisure are listening to. So like, you are trying to become a sliver of that consumption experience for somebody. And to do that, that's why all these pieces are important. But to your point, it's like fiddling around on the 5th sentence of the description. It's like, it's not going to make or break them clicking that play button.
Yes, and especially if it stops you from moving forward in general.
Oh man, that's it.
And that's not like that a revision can't occur or that we can't change direction. I mean, it's something that happens all the time.
Yep.
But really and the people that we've worked with that get very, very bogged down in these details, and there's never...
And that's okay. It's all good if you do.
For sure,
Yes.
yeah, but...
I get why. Like, I totally understand why. It's all for good reasons. It's never for, like, cynical, like I have to, draw... Like, I'm just trying to draw somebody in and extra people. Like, it's all because you're in your head. And I get it. I'm in my head, too. Like,
yeah, and especially for people that are not super savvy with being online, or not being online, but having, being online, being on video or audio.
I was going to say every day.
I think a lot of it might just be some unconscious, and I don't mean to look at these people like specimens, right?
Yeah,
because
right.
like I'm the same way. Like even like how we have how we have chopped up our media. Or our marketing approach has been, I'm the Phantom of the Opera hiding in subterranean.
Yeah, if anybody wants to know, Jack is he's
caves.
Exactly.
I hide away. There's sort of like a wooden basement door that you keep with a padlock, and you open it up and you toss down raw.
What's the name of that door? What's that door called? The basement door. That's
Bilko doors. Bilko doors.
And you have, they have the 2x4 that slides in, so you can't.
I felt my Hunterdon County deep down in me. I was like, if you can't
pull out
summon
Bilko.
the name of Bilko doors, I don't even know.
We just lost 6 listeners. All right, keep going.
Dave just exited the chat, but yeah. No, dude, it's I don't know what I think it's just a big project, and it's a big way to put yourself out there. And I completely feel that was that whole little bit that we were doing there.
But that's
like,
what you're in.
Yeah.
To add to your point, that's what you're in. Like, I'm on the outside going, podcasts are amazing, podcasts are great if you can do this, this, and that, or if your goal is this. And like, my whole world is just my entire like mission is to figure out how to explain podcasts to people in a way that all different types of people can understand. And that's why I do so many posts. That's why we post every day, right? Your job is once they've realized this is the thing, right? Now it's, okay, we have 36 micro details that we're going to go through over the next 5 to 6 hours,
yes.
Right? And that's why that's the split, right? So it's project manager versus account manager. If you want to do it in business terms, that's what it is, And I heard that on a podcast episode. There's the account manager, that's the rah. There's the project manager, that's the dollars and cents. Can we do this? Will this make sense? Will this work? And I'm kind of going off on a little tangent, but if you have that, you're gonna have that on your podcast or with your content or in your marketing, no matter what. Like, podcasts really don't get made in isolation. So whether it's you're working with somebody like us, you're working with one editor from Fiverr, there's that dynamic. Like,
which you can make happen, by the way.
Yeah, true. And that's I was going to say that's a great episode. That would be a great episode.
Yeah,
too.
there's bullets you got to bite with that, but that can happen.
Yep.
And we should probably actually cover that too in another episode.
But the advice is baby steps.
Yes.
Try before you buy. Try before you buy.
Yeah, and we tell this to people that we already have in our program that are launching a podcast. As we say, like, when we're talking about your concept, reach out to potential guests.
Yes.
Start doing other things as well.
Yeah.
And before we even think about the launch date or promotion or what we're going to do for that, interview your best friend or somebody that has some sort of that you're
Make it a layup, dude.
Yeah, a layup interview, somebody that you would already have on. Not only, and we tell them, not only do you get to test out the experience with the equipment and what that's like with it, and how annoying it is, but how long do you talk for? Is it hours? Is it 45 minutes? Is it really thin? Do you have a good time?
Interviewing. You might literally just not like not talking for most of the time, right? Maybe it won't figure. And you go, thank God I did these first 3 ones to realize that I need a co-host.
Maybe it's a solo, yeah.
Maybe it's a solo. Maybe it's a co-host.
No, but all that information, you'll be able to, and even equipment-wise, you can explore that recording without spending thousands of dollars or even $1,000.
Yes, yeah, 100%.
Or $8,000.
Yeah, and that's something that we
$1,000 of dollars.
$1,000
No, but
bills.
you can, baby steps. You can explore all of this without the help of us, without the help of, you can do all this.
And this is a revelation that's came like 3 or 4 years of us doing this.
It's experience driven.
We've literally helped like hundreds of people at this point, and it's just like we weren't giving this advice in the beginning because we just hadn't done enough of them.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you totally don't really. You probably don't want to buy a car on eBay and just bank on like you like it. Like, no, go to a dealership, drive the same car, then go buy it online. And yeah, man, that's something I think is like, it seems easy to just be like, that's the best advice, like, or just cliche like that. But it really is like try podcasting. Like, it's a thing that it's a person you become, and it's a habit that you build. And that's like the philosophical version of, if I said that on every post, it wouldn't push through, but you don't realize it till after. Like, and we know so many people who have done the 100 episodes of a podcast that just was kind of just didn't hit that mark. It hit it 30%, but not 75. And they always say afterwards, like, yeah, next time I'm going to start like this.
Yeah.
Right. And so you can eliminate those 100.
Yeah. You can just get rid of that. You don't even have to. I mean, we tell people all the time, like, they'll say, well, we'll get started on when do you want to launch? And almost without fail, it'll be 3 or 4 weeks from the moment that we're speaking.
I want to do my wedding in 4.5 weeks.
Which is
the same.
Yeah, which is fine. I mean, that's certainly a decision.
Yes.
But there's not a lot of opportunities, and it's what you and I always say. There's not a lot of opportunities that you get in life to make your own deadlines and to manage your schedule.
I love that line, man.
With that much control. So that's, you can take those, okay, we're going to be doing all this stuff in 3 weeks. Why don't we just take 3 weeks to record? Why don't we just see if in the next 3 weeks we get you 3 episodes?
Yep.
And if they're horrible and you ran into all these problems, now we've got that experience out of the way, and you've learned from that, hopefully, or whatever it may be equipment wise.
But I was gonna say, we changed this. We now have we now prime you to record within the first like few hours of working with us. Like, that's like one of the initial things that we have now for that exact reason. We don't want anybody to feel like, I would record, but this. It's like, we could do it on the first freaking call if you really want to. It's
if you want to spend 2.5 hours or so,
you can mix and match it, but it's like, sure, we want to plan these things out first, but I think the being ready to record with, if it's a virtual setup, just your webcam, your mic, your ring light, or your lighting, that's all you need. And then it's a Riverside, or I mean, for us it's Zencaster. That's just what I prefer. I don't care what you use: Squadcast, Riverside, Zencaster, even Zoom if you want. We'll give you the settings to use if you want to use that. And then get on there with your cousin who's in HR. Get on there with your best friend who's a sports agent. Get on there with somebody that you've connected with on LinkedIn for the last 2.5 years, and they can talk at length.
And it could be audio. It doesn't need to be set up like this, where you need to worry about like, I
mean, this took an extra
good.
an hour this morning, and then another 45 minutes before we hit record. But it doesn't have to.
Yeah, just with the mics and some basic soundproofing. And look, I'm not going to make this seem like it's zero effort. Like, there is some purchases that would need to be made. You need to get somebody over to your place, soundproof. Like, I'm not like delusional and just being like, we'll just set up a couple things and then but you can really try this out, and if it's not for you, then it's not for you.
100%. Yeah.
And that's cool.
I'm getting many more people now who are booking discovery calls who are saying, yeah, we have like 3 or 4 episodes, but we have no idea what to do. And I'm like, oh, perfect. You're actually exactly at the right spot.
Good information to have. I mean,
Yes.
you're so far ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
You know, if you have the gumption to be able to do that
Yes.
before you sit down with someone, I mean,
Yep.
even sort of like, use this analogy of, you know, if you're going to get your car fixed and you don't really have a lot of experience of, you know, let's say something with your transmission.
You're not me. You're not an expert.
Yeah, I'm not an expert, and Sully's the mechanic, right? Exactly. And I go to him. I want to make sure that I at least know a little bit about what I'm talking about. Not that I'm gonna know more than him, obviously, or really be able to like outfox the mechanic.
Yes. Yeah.
But
that's not the point.
At least with that, you can get a little bit more information and be a little bit more informed, and I think that's kind of what we're advocating for.
Yes.
Like, so you don't have to jump in and pay money to us or some other coaching thing and just hope that everything works out.
Yep.
You could be like, I do like being on the mic. I do like interviewing my friends. I do like talking about the stock market or real estate or whatever it may be. You know, and I did a couple interviews and I had a lot of fun, but I just don't know how to position it. I don't know how to promote it, whatever.
There's the other one. Yep.
Yeah, those are things that we can fix that have steps, you know.
Yes.
So,
100%.
but the experience and how you feel with it, you can completely eliminate the fog of war with that.
Yep.
It's just, but you know, the thing is, obviously, it's just a little bit of extra legwork before you make a discovery call on top of all that.
As hard as this is, because I know you're
and use the mic for a Zoom meeting. You know, if you don't like it, then keep the mic for your Zoom meetings or
on
whatever.
Zoom, and you don't have a mic, you're gonna make more money if you have a mic.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah.
Just you will. You will if you have good. The better quality is the thing that requires zero talent. No talent. You don't need to have years of production experience like any of like
not now. Yeah, not now.
You don't. You just let us help you set it up, and then people go, "What? How'd you get? Why do you have all this?" Well, I'm actually starting a podcast, and you want listeners? People are going to ask, "What mic do you have?" Like when you're on these calls, you're going to sell better. Like, especially for me, where it's like that's why I have the shirt on. I have the mic on every Zoom call. It's like you can do that if you're not a production company. If you're selling to investors. It's better if they hear you better. But anyway,
and if you got a business, making an expense.
My point was too, if you're type A, you're a business owner, you have clients. The reason you having a little bit more of a perfectionist mindset has gotten you here, which is great.
Yeah.
Now you're entering the creative arena, right? And so in that arena though, as hard as this is, but if you have the self-awareness to know you're a perfectionist type, you can get through this. And you can have other people, like say for us, or it could be anybody, but in our case, this is what we do, give you permission to push past that and give you actual tactics to drop your guard down so you can actually fucking record.
And another pair of eyes to look at it that has dealt with people in tons of different industries, tons of different backgrounds, tons of different objectives for their podcasts as well.
Everything from literally just 75% of my leads, I want them to watch this, all the way to a cultural hip-hop podcast. It's like we've seen the goals. The goals have 20, 30 different goals, you know? And they're all unique. Every single one of them is different. You can have 3 different investors. If they're doing everything right, they're going to have 3 completely different podcasts because of the market, you know? And strategy and personality, man. It's that is you based. That's not, there's the target market and there's the content gap that you're filling, and then there's you. And if you're an interviewer and you're doing a solo, it's not going to work. People can feel that. Like if this wasn't meant for us, we wouldn't be able to sit here for 40 minutes and do it.
Exactly, yeah.
So,
and you know, the other thing too that I'll add to this is that there's a lot of people that don't put themselves out there like this.
True.
Where it's not like the internet's something that's new, but we're in a digital age now that, you know, it's sort of like you got to put up or shut up if you're doing a solopreneur thing or an entrepreneur thing. If you're looking to really distinguish yourself from tons of different financial advisors or tons of different real estate agents, whatever it may be, right? Coaches just in general, for whatever it may be.
Especially coaches.
Yeah. You know, like this is a way that what I always say to give other people, prospects or just people that are browsing, to give their lizard brain an opportunity to see how do you explain a problem? How do you answer a question? Do you have a sense of humor? Are you too stiff? All these things that you would discover on a call is going to be sort of addressed already on the podcast, and you also have the benefit too of pointing people towards, your FAQs are going to be your content, and they're going to be going to you, but not you. It's the parasocial you, which is good too.
Exactly. Which is our last episode, by the way,
so
if you didn't see it.
Exactly.
2 episodes ago. Check it out.
So it's going to be doing work for you. It's like an avatar of you that's doing work for you.
This is what Alex Sheridan says all the time. It's basically, 24-hour sales rep. It really is. Like, it's like a clone of you that just goes out and sits on LinkedIn and waits for somebody to scroll by and then talks to them. It's fucking insane.
Oh, you have a question? I have an 8-minute video or a 30-minute interview that addresses this.
Yeah, man.
Among other things.
And all that starts with, hey, man, like getting past that perfectionism, which totally got you there. Totally understand. It's also
a tolerance thing. It's a tolerance thing,
man. And we did this, right? Like, look at us, for example, right? We did a podcast about podcasting. Yeah, it was a little overstructured. It was a little overly scripted.
Oh my God, it was so overstructured. And we're the podcast guys, and
but we were trying to
made it a nightmare to create.
We were trying to be the people that were giving you advice.
Yeah.
But making sure we didn't leave anything out, and we were sure this was so hyper focused. And naturally, 2 years later, here we are. You're on the podcast. You're part of it. Mm-hmm. Like, there's that content evolution. That's a great note to kind of wrap with too, which is,
for sure,
as much as we plan this out, how many of the podcasts we've worked on are successful now because they changed a little bit, only because they put in all those reps that allowed them to go, oh, now this is what it is.
Yeah, no, the reps are so important, right? I mean, being able to speak between the lines and then having the industry know-how to be able to just talk about what you're going to talk about.
Yep.
But then at the same time, those reps to be able to hang in an interview, to fill out thoughts and not get completely derailed, stuff like that. Or even, like you said, the perfectionism. To me, it's a tolerance thing.
Yep.
It's you need to just get used to.
Yes, and you get comfortable with it 100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it's kind of cool because even with me, I've noticed too, with me being on camera, the stuff that bothers you about your mannerisms or how you speak or whatever, it really does fade. Over time,
and you can change it too because you can see yourself. You
Yeah.
could be aware of it now.
Yeah. But that feeling that if
no
anybody's new, right? That okay, they take our advice, miraculously, and they try it out and they look at themselves on the recording. And they go, oh my God.
Yeah.
That's what I sound like.
Yep.
That's what everybody goes like.
100%.
That's what everybody says. That's how everybody really feels. That's sort of a normal reaction.
I mean, you feel like that in a social situation, even, right? It's
yeah. So I think a lot of it is tolerance,
Yes,
and then, like you said, just being able to
Stage
get
time,
those
man.
reps, and being able to kind of riff with it, and be yourself, because that's when your personality really shines. Is when you can relax.
Yeah, that's it. And that really is if be yourself is too cliche, it's the real thing that's happening, if you need another way to couch it, is just you being relaxed.
Yes.
That's it. Like, that's what we want.
Yep.
Because we know when people, when you start on video, you're going to be stiff for the first, 5 times. It just is what it is. Mm-hmm. And people can sense that, but they see the intention. They go, dude, you're putting yourself out here.
Everybody looks at those videos, because that's the thing, too, is I think a lot of people think that I'm going to be on LinkedIn, and this is the POV of somebody that sees the first episode of a new podcast.
Yep.
I'm scrolling. It's a new episode. They're a bit stiff. It's a bit all over the place. Mm-hmm. I've known this person on my network for a while, but I don't think I like them anymore. This is sloppy. Before I liked when they just spoke in text. And now it's this whole video thing, and they're more like there's more energy to it, and I think I'm going to unfollow. Yeah. And I think the deal that I had with them previously I don't think that's going to be in play any longer. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't want somebody like this to handle my finances.
Ridiculous.
That never happened.
That's never happened.
Even the idea of people, somebody saying, it's not Instagram, it's LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So you're going to have your diehards are going to be like, this is amazing.
which is
slay
going to
queen,
be
go off
most
king,
of it,
slash
which is
go
going to
off
be
queen.
90%,
Yeah,
100%.
you're killing it.
Yep.
There's going to be newcomers that like it. I mean, you know that too from like, there's just people like, I watch your videos all the time. You'd be surprised.
But I was going to say the weirdest shit is when you never have heard of them and
they show up at your doorstep and they're like, I'm here to learn. No, just, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
No,
yeah.
for sure. But they say
you never know.
I've been following you for 18 months. It's like, or whatever they say, a couple of years. I've been following you for 18 months, 9 days, and 3.5 hours.
Following you for
18 months. I've been following you for a couple of years, and
the cost of business.
Yeah, exactly. It is good, man.
Yeah,
but they say that, and then
content was so good it put you and your girlfriend's life in imminent danger.
Is there any better content than that?
No, but it's it's really, there's not going to be anything bad that happens, and I know it sounds a bit silly, like seriously, come on, there's nothing. But it's especially if it's going to be if it's going to be going on LinkedIn, if you're an online coach, if you have some sort of business, right? If it's not going to be like, a lot of that nastiness really is relegated for different parts of the internet. That's not they're not going to be populating a YouTube video about how to, you know what I'm saying?
They're not going to make a anti-you video.
And even people that disagree with you about podcast stuff, it's just, I mean, you know, it's just a disagreement. It's nothing really like,
dude, it's gone
nice
tomorrow.
Hair, idiots. And then you're just like waking up in the morning, check, you know. It's nothing like that. It's not going to add extra drama to your life. It's not going to make you, you know, it's never going to.
At the end of the day, who you're creating it for.
Worst case scenario, nobody notices, which won't even be something that happens.
Yes, exactly. And
if you have a pulse on LinkedIn or online.
Literally, if you have created anything or have any amount, even if you just have your old Facebook friends, they
be
will
from Earth, and you can. Yeah.
You're going to have those kids from high school out of the woodwork who just like, you haven't talked to them in 11 years, and then they just comment and go like, oh, I've kind of been interested in, like, my cousin's a financial advisor, but I don't know where to start. Like, that's just going to happen. It's just, that's going to be what's going to happen.
There's been friends of mine from our high school that they've come up to me like years later and were like, oh, that's cool. I've been following your, and it's just, I didn't even, you know, so you never know.
Yep.
You know, and bringing it back out to making it, you know, for your business, you never know who's watching.
Yep.
And what do they say? It's 20 touch points or something like that.
Yeah, I go, whatever, 8 to 12.
Yeah,
12
so
to
it's
20.
like,
I mean,
you know,
you make up a number, but
yeah, you know, it's just, you can look at it really plainly as just a way to sort of get more touch points out there to see if you're if there's more people that don't want to do the call, don't want to engage with you, but they kind of are still thinking about this, thinking about improving whatever your service is that you purport to improve. But yeah, you know,
I was going to say,
it's worth it. It's
worth it. And also, dude, if I don't post a video now, it like the post does worse.
You're in trouble.
Yes, I die. I
trouble,
disintegrate. Yeah, all my leads dry up. But if it's prioritizing video for me right now.
That used to not be the case for you too.
No,
well, not that you didn't do any video, but that used to be a bit of a special treat. And now
it's like I try to have, like, I have to make so many more videos because I'm like,
absolutely,
every time I post a video, and I think two things. Yes, LinkedIn's prioritizing it more.
Yeah.
2, there's not a lot of videos, and if every single person who's listened to any of this episode at all, whether it's a clip, repurposed, full on Spotify, YouTube, short form, whatever you want, if all of us made video on LinkedIn tomorrow, it still wouldn't be that much video. Like, it's just so huge. Like, there's however many hundreds of millions of users, and there's only like 3 million people who make content, and I'm gonna guess that not even 5 to 10% is video anyway.
It's the holy,
go for it.
The
just
holy
do it.
grail is differentiation.
Just
right?
do it. If I didn't have to, you know, if I wasn't scared of this mic getting, you know, this is about $70, and that's, you know, these days it means a lot. I would drop this mic because it's just like, fucking do it, man. If I could, but, you know what I'm saying, like that, I would drop it on the floor. But I would,
some
man.
Sinatra freestyling here.
Let's do it. Off the dome, bro. Throw the beat on.
I meant Frank Sinatra. Just you know,
Frankie. Yeah.
The classics.
I love Frankie, bro.
But yeah,
do it.
Look, dude, it's a good look.
Nothing's bad is gonna happen.
If you're listening to this and you've had
you
had the idea for years now, and
especially that
you're being difficult with yourself, first off, get your okay, Sully, cover your ears. Get your freaking head out of your butt, dude. Okay, get your head out of your butt. All right, because we even had a question too where somebody was like, "What if I'm, what if I can't do a pod.
Yeah.
Come on.
What if it's not right?
Come on, dude.
Have you tried it?
You're an entrepreneur. You got confidence to like deal with a difficult life. You know, it's going to affect everything, but you don't want to. You know, I don't think I can talk to people about what I know. I'm not mad, but I'm disappointed. No, but I'm just kidding. You know, it doesn't work for everyone. Obviously, we're not psychos. No. But I look if you do have if you like talking about this, and you know, there's people that even like that we've talked about with the stock market that just love talking stocks. It'd be like you've had all these conversations on the phone or on Discord
anyway.
or whatever. Yeah,
I mean that's what we're doing.
So stuff like that.
Right
like if you're already having those conversations, if you already have I have like my best. I'm blessed enough to have like my best
11
friend.
years we just realized we know each other.
To work with, right? We noticed, and it took us forever, and we're in the podcasting industry, and it took us forever to notice we're already having these conversations with one another,
almost
and we're
daily,
not taking advantage of it. You know, so I think there's other people. If this resonates with you, if you have this sort of relationship with a friend of yours that's you know in your industry or something like that, you know, give it a shot.
Give it a go.
Buy a mic and you know have a beer.
You
know, maybe make some burgers after. Make like a nice. It doesn't need to be some soulless endeavor to see what the experience. It could be a fun thing. So you know,
it's again back to the beginning. You get to make your own deadlines.
Emphasis on the burgers.
Emphasis on the beer, and I need one.
Yeah, dude.
You get to make your own deadlines. You get to make your own thing. This is you. This is your brand, and you don't. It doesn't have to be that deep. Get started. Try it out. So many topics.
Absolutely.
I mean, listen. If you want the meta example here, like me and Jack doing this created another 5 to 10 topics that we will now just explore on further episodes. So if that gives you any inspiration or any tactical advice, once the can is open, it's just going to continue to, you know, the well will not dry up, right? Yeah. So grab a friend or, you know.
If you have a friend like this that, you know, again, that does the same thing that you can do, that you do already, and he can be a co-host, like you have your conversations like this all the time. You know, if you have the gumption to do it, man, if you have the wherewithal and can spend a little bit of money on doing a little bit of setup and a little blood and sweat and tears just to try it out, you know, it may be something kind of fun.
That's it, man.
It may even create a new bond between you and your friend or your colleague.
A deeper bond.
Yeah, so then your colleague becomes your friend, right?
More friends, the better.
More friends, the better. But yeah, we're probably going to cap it there, right? I was
going to say, thanks, man. Yeah, it's been really cool.
Should we touch mics? Should we cheers mics?
Should we cheers mics?
Okay.